Welcome back. Many SAT and ACT questions will test your ability to match a subject with its verb. This could be a little tricky, especially since the correct answer might sound wrong to your ear. So in this video, let's look at all of the variations of how this topic might appear on the SAT and the ACT, and some tricks to help you hear the right answer a little more naturally. These questions are very popular and worth a nice chunk of points on each test. So if you find any part of this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. And hit the notification bell so that you can be updated whenever I post a new video. As always, I do appreciate your support. Okay, let's get into the details of subject-verb agreement. Here's how this topic might appear on each test. I don't want to give the answer away just yet, so I'm going to read each bold word as a blank. Think about which word you would pick. The group of students, blank, going on a trip. What word here is doing that action? It's tempting to say the students are going on a trip. That sounds right. But the answer is actually is. Why? The noun here that's going on the trip is not the students, it's the group. And this brings up the concept of a prepositional phrase. Whenever you see the construction, the noun one of the noun two is doing something, it's the noun one that you want to focus on. Of noun two is just distraction, but we could skip over it. And the same thing's going on here. When they say the group of students is just a little extra information, but it's not part of the subject. The group is the word that we care about. So if we skip over the prepositional phrase, we could say the group is going on a trip. The answer is. That's a little tricky. Let's try it again. The fighting between the two states, blank, finally ceased. What word here is connected to that verb? The fighting between the two states is a prepositional phrase. Let's skip over it. The fighting has finally ceased. The answer is has. Let's look at another variation. The fugitives, already identified by the witness, blank on the loose. Which word here is connected to that verb? Look at that chunk already identified by the witness. Notice how it's separated with commas on each side. That's called an appositive. You don't need to know that, but you could realize that's a chunk of words that we don't need. We could skip over it. So if we go from the fugitives, we could say the fugitives remain on the loose. The answer is remain. One more. The congestion on the bridge, despite the effort of government officials, blank to plague the morning commuters. What word here is connected to that verb? The congestion. We can skip over everything else and just say the congestion continues. That one was a bit of a double whammy. They're giving you both a prepositional phrase with on the bridge and the appositive, despite the effort of government officials. Both of those chunks are just distraction. We can skip over all of that and just say the congestion continues. So notice how all of these sentences were doing the same thing. Each one was separating a subject from its verb with some sort of distraction between them. And both tests love to do that to mess with your ear. They want you to think that that noun right before the verb is its subject. Like in that first one, your ear wants to say the students are, but you had to go further back to find the real subject. So, when you see a verb, make sure it agrees with its subject. And the test loves to separate a verb from its subject with either a prepositional phrase, those words of the, to the, from the, or an appositive, information that you could skip over, usually separated, comma, comma, or dash, dash. Learning to skip over a prepositional phrase or an appositive is one of the most important skills to help your verbal score on the SAT and the ACT. Let's see how this comes up on a few questions. I won't help with these two just yet. Take a minute, give them a try. Question 1. As I walked through the bakery, I found that the smell drifting from the cakes, pies, and muffins were hard to resist. What noun here is connected to that verb? It's tempting to say cakes, pies, and muffins were hard to resist. Sounds like those words go together. But those words are actually not the subject. It's the smell that's the subject. Look at from cakes, pies, and muffins. The word from sets off a prepositional phrase, so we can skip that portion and go from the word smell right to the verb. The smell was hard to resist. The answer is B. Let's do the second. The oldest dinosaur fossils, collected from Triassic rocks in Argentina, dates back to approximately 232 million years ago. Look at what they're doing. Collected from rocks in Argentina is separated with commas on each side. That's your appositive. We can skip it. So we can go back to the noun fossils. That's the subject. So connecting those words, the fossils date back. The answer is H. And this brings up a point that many of my students really don't like. Many of them can get as far as saying that the fossils are the subject, so they understand that we want a plural word. But then from there, they think the verb needs to have an S in order to be plural as well, so they pick the word dates because they think that makes it plural. But careful, verbs don't work that way. Adding an S to a noun indicates that the word is plural, but adding an S to a verb indicates that the word is singular. For example, in what we just saw, if we have many fossils, we have to say that fossils date back. The verb date is plural, even though it doesn't have an S. And now let's make it singular with one fossil. One fossil dates back. The verb dates is singular, even though it has an S. In other words, just because a word has an S doesn't necessarily mean that it's plural. That's only true for a noun, not a verb. Again, many of my students hate that rule, so if you were confused by that last bit, don't worry about it. As long as you could learn to eliminate the prepositional phrase or the appositive and go right from the subject to the verb, you'll be fine. So in that last example, as long as you could hear that it would need to be one fossil dates back or many fossils date back, you'll be okay. Let's look at another variation. Here are a few more sample sentences. Again, think about which word you would pick for the blank. Standing at the base of the mountains, blank the monument. Which word here is doing the action? The monument. You'd say the monument is standing at the base of the mountains. And this is what's called an inverted sentence. What do we mean by that? It's sort of backwards. The subject comes after its verb. So you could do what we just did, reading it backwards. The monument is standing at the base of the mountains. Let's look at another. Under the heating tray, blank, bacon, pancakes, and sausages. Which noun here is doing the sitting? The bacon, pancakes, and the sausages. So let's flip it around. Bacon, pancakes, and sausages sit under the heating tray. The answer is sit. And again, if they're plural, the verb does not get an S. So, sometimes a subject can appear after its verb. That one could be a little trickier to spot. Notice how it helps to read the sentence backwards. Find the subject and then read it into the verb. That way you'll hear it more naturally. Let's try that on the next few questions. I won't help. Take a few minutes, give it a shot. Question 3. Supporting Boston's Zakim Bridge is many uneven beams. It is therefore classified as an asymmetrical bridge. Which noun here is connected to that verb? It's the beams that are supporting the bridge. So if we flipped it around, we could say many uneven beams are supporting the bridge. The answer is D. Again, the subject is happening after its verb. One more. Behind these walls lie the most valuable treasure you've ever seen. What noun is lying behind the walls? The treasure. Let's flip it around. The treasure lies behind the walls. The answer is G. So for inverted sentences, it helps to flip the sentence around and go from the noun into the verb. And let's look at one more variation. I'll do this one with you. Since potential jurors might not be called for hours, a computer station and Wi-Fi service is available in the main waiting room. So, which noun here is connected to that verb? Well, the station is available, but so is the Wi-Fi service. We have two nouns, and they're connected by the word and. That's very important. By connecting them with the word and, it makes them what's called a compound subject. That makes them plural. So it's sort of like saying the two things are available. The answer is D. If this had said either a workstation or a Wi-Fi service, that would be different. But the word and makes them plural. The answer is D. Let's look at another variation of that. Both Eleanor and Estelle dream of becoming a professional actress, so they have hired an audition coach. I'll give you a second. Press pause, give it a try. So far, we've been matching subjects and verbs, but there are no verbs underlined here in the choices, but it's still related to this topic. How? Notice how Eleanor and Estelle are connected by the word and. That's very important. Just like on the last example, that connects them and makes them plural. Therefore, if they're plural people, they can't want to become a singular actress. One person can become an actress, but two people would need to become actresses. That word needs to be plural, so we could eliminate F and G. From there, we need to figure out if it's that semicolon in H or that comma in J. So let's see whether or not we have full thoughts. Reading the first part. Both Eleanor and Estelle dream of becoming a professional actress. That's a full thought. So they have hired an audition coach. not a full thought. So we can't use a semicolon, we want a comma. The answer is J. Check out my video 20 here for more help with commas and semicolons. But the main takeaway from that last question is that nouns do not only need to match verbs, they also need to match nouns from elsewhere in the sentence. So again, 2 people want to become actresses, but each person wants to become an actress. This concept of matching things within a sentence came up a lot in video 34 here, where we talked about parallelism. In that video, you'll find other variations of matching different parts of a sentence. Check it out for more practice. So just to recap, you always want to match a subject to its verb, or the noun and the action it does. But be careful, they might be separating those words with either a prepositional phrase, of the, to the, from the, or an appositive, information separated with comma, comma, or dash, dash. And careful of the letter S. An S makes a noun plural, but it makes a verb singular. And sometimes you have an inverted sentence where it's backwards. See if you could read the subject before the verb. And not only do you need to match a noun with a verb, you also need to match it with other nouns. Now don't worry about these fancy words like compound subjects or appositives. You don't have to memorize any of that, as long as you could take away the bigger point that we're making things within a sentence match. That's what these questions want. As we said, these topics are very popular on both the SAT and the ACT. So keep practicing, and they'll pay off in some nice points on the test. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to leave any questions below in the comment section. Thanks for watching. And remember, plan your work, work your plan.